Okay. A mortgage. A mortgage is what we specifically call a loan you take to buy a house or a condo. You may want to put some money towards the price of that condo or house because you have some money to put forward to it. That's called a down payment. You know, so like, let's say you're looking at a $400,000 house. You've got $30,000 that you can pay or that you can put towards the house, which means you're going to have to take a loan or a mortgage out for $370,000. What are some of the terms involved in a mortgage? Just like when we took interest and credit, there's the principal amount that you borrow. That's the amount that you borrow. And so in my example, I said $370,000. That would be the principal. The interest is what the financial institution, whatever you use that offers mortgages, it's going to charge you to borrow the money. And you can negotiate these things. If you have a really good credit rating, you may get a lower interest rate. Or you can shop around at different banks or other financial institutions. So you go to a bank, they say, okay, we're going to give you 4% interest. And then you go to another bank or another financial institution and they say, okay, we're going to give you, 4.1% interest. And I'm like, okay, well, I went to another bank and they gave me 4%. Oh, well, we want your business, so we'll give you 3.9%. So you get a little lower. So you can shop around for interest rates. Okay. So when you get your mortgage, when you get your loan, you pay back a certain amount. And usually it's per month or every second week. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. That's the mortgage payment. When you amortize something, that's the time it takes to pay back in years. Okay? You can take an amortization period for mortgages for different lengths of years, different lengths of time. The common ones are 15, 20, 25, and now I believe they've introduced 30. So that means they're going to spread out how much you have to pay back per month or every second week for that many years that your amortization period is. So obviously, the longer amortization period you take, the less you're going to have to pay per month. Okay? Because if you take a shorter one, that's a shorter time period, you're going to have to pay more per month. Now, you don't just take a mortgage and then pay it for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. You get a mortgage for a certain period of time, and then you renew the mortgage later on. The most common length of time people get a mortgage for is 5 years, a 5-year term. So they're gonna have an interest rate, they're gonna have an amortization amount, and they do that over 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, they renegotiate another mortgage and then keep doing that until it's paid off. It could be 3 years. It could be 1 year. It depends on the type of mortgage that you take. And finally, and this is another term we're going to see, something called equity. Equity is how much you owe or how much you own of your house. And to find that, let's say your house is worth $400,000 and you've been living in it for several years and you have a mortgage still of $100,000. Well, your equity is $300,000 because if your house is worth 400, but you still owe 100, that means 300 of that 400 you own. That's yours. Okay. there's different types of mortgages. The two main types in terms of interest are a fixed rate and a variable rate. A fixed rate mortgage, you lock in to pay a certain interest rate for a certain number of years, your term. So if you can lock in at a five-year term mortgage, and your interest rate is say 4%. Okay, that means for 5 years you're paying 4% interest. It does not change. Okay? A variable rate means that you're going to take a mortgage where the interest rate could change. It depends on the market. So you may start at 4%, but maybe the market does really well, interest rates go down and you're only paying 3%. Or maybe the market does really poorly, interest rates go up and now you're paying 5%. So you can see that a variable rate is riskier. Okay? It depends on what the market is doing. If the market is stable, then it'll be very similar to a fixed rate. Okay? What do you think would be the safer one? The fixed rate, right? Because it's not going to change. However, you want to make sure that you get a really good interest rate. Okay? Like I think I told you guys, mine is under 2%. I got a really good rate almost 5 years ago. Okay? So I decided, oh, I'm taking it. I'm going to lock in as long as I can. And I could lock in for 5 years before I have to renegotiate. Right? So most of my mortgage payments are going towards the principal, not the interest that I'm paying. And which means I'm getting a lot of equity in my house. However, this term, that mortgage 5-year term, is up in January. So I have a decision to make in January. Do I want to go to a fixed rate because interest rates are higher? Or do I want to go to a variable rate because I think they're saying interest rates will likely come down? So that's the decision I got to make. I could maybe go with a variable rate, get like 5% or something like that. And then if the interest rates get better, my rate gets better. Whereas if I fixed in for 5 years at 5%, I don't gain that. Okay. Another thing that I would have to consider is, this is another way to define mortgages: closed, open, convertible. Closed mortgage means that you can't make any extra payments to your loan. Okay? You only pay how much the monthly payment is. And if you want to pay more towards your loan, like let's say you inherit $50,000 and you want to put it towards your house, the bank may charge you a fee for that, called the breakage cost, because you're actually breaking the terms of your mortgage. Okay? I'm under a closed mortgage right now. I can't make any extra payments. If I want to make any extra payments, I have to take an open mortgage. That allows me to do that. Okay, but the cost for that, open mortgages, the interest rate is usually a little higher than closed, which is kind of common sense. Okay, because the bank, the chances, if you take an open mortgage and you start putting more amounts towards your mortgage, the bank's not going to get as much interest, so they're going to charge you a little bit more interest for it. And finally, a convertible is kind of halfway. It's a mortgage that you can change basically from open to closed. Okay, so you can start with an open mortgage and then maybe interest rates come down. You say, you know what? I'm going to go to a closed mortgage because I'm going to get a little bit of a lower interest rate. Interest rates are not going to move after that. So I'm going to stick with that. Again, you don't have to know like all the little details and stuff. I just want you to be familiar with these terms. How can you minimize mortgage rates or mortgage costs? Okay. Well, the big thing is if you're able to put additional money in, let's say you have a mortgage that allows you to do so, or the interest rate. And you can see the impact that the interest rate has on your monthly payments if you look at this table. You get an interest rate of 5%, you're paying $1,050. Basically, for every 1% decrease in interest rate, your monthly mortgage payments will go down $100. It's not bad, it's $1,200 a year. Okay. So it does make a big difference, the interest rate. The length of the term. Also. Okay. So remember, the term of your mortgage is different from the amortization period. The amortization period is the total length of your home, your borrowing in years, but the term is how much you pay that certain interest rate amount for. And it can be anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. Okay? A lot of first-time home buyers get a 5-year term to start because they want to be locked in at a certain amount because it's safe and secure. Okay? If you don't plan on moving anytime soon, you probably want to get a longer term, as long as you get a good interest rate. Okay? If you're possibly moving somewhere else very soon, you may want to think about getting a shorter term. Okay? As well as a different type of mortgage, like an open mortgage or a variable rate. The amortization period, like I said at the beginning, the longer your amortization period is, the less you have to pay per month. Okay? But that doesn't mean that the total cost is going to be less at the end of your amortization period. So like if you look at it, if you're going to decide 15 years at 5%, well, you're going to pay $1,581 per month. If you decide to turn that into a 20-year, spread it over 20 years, you're going to pay less, $1,319. If you decide to spread that out over 25 years, you're going to pay even less, $1,169. Okay. But if you look at the total interest cost, notice you'll pay more interest the longer, because you're paying interest over a longer period of time. So there's a trade-off, right? It's like, do I want the money now, or do I worry about it later? You know, for most people, they'll spread it out over 25 or 30 years because they want the money, they want the savings now. They know that in the end, they're going to pay more. But at least they're saving money now. So that's what you got to, that's the trade-off between how long you want to take your total mortgage for. Okay. And just finally, I'll end off with these two things, with these options. Some mortgages will allow you to make an extra payment every year, maybe 10 to 15% of the original loan, or you may, instead of paying per month, you may pay every second week, which means you're actually putting more towards your mortgage if you pay every second week. Because if you pay per month, you're only making 12 payments a year. If you pay every second week, you're making 26 payments per year, right? Because there's 52 weeks in a year, divide 2 gives us 26 payments because, yeah. All right, for our course, we're just going to worry about monthly payments. We're just going to be calculating monthly payments. And so the next thing we'll talk about later on, or in the next class, is how to actually calculate mortgage payments.